All right, hello, my name is Zach Gilliland, and my group and I are getting ready to present our third project for EFD 620, the Measurement and Evaluation course. The title of it's to the Resources Group Assessment Plan. So what we're doing is we're sort of presenting a professional development session centered around RTI within our school district. The reason we chose RTI is because we've got, each grading period, we fill out these RTI evaluation forms the teachers do. And I feel like some of my colleagues, they'll talk about things from time to time. And I feel like there's the large group of the teachers within our district, especially in the secondary level, that don't really understand exactly how each building handles RTI. So that's what we're doing today is basically teaching our faculty how each high school or middle school in Etowah County School District handles the RTI and how they handle the pull-out sessions or whatever for our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions for our students that are in need. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce or allow the group members to introduce themselves that are part of this project.
Hey, I'm Julie Tucker. I'm the principal.
Hey, I'm Emmanuel Scott.
And yes, we collaborated on this project, and we're excited to talk a little RTI with you.
Yes, we are. Okay, so first we're gonna start off with the icebreaker. What is one instructional practice you have tried to get away from in the last 5 years? For example, teaching strictly behind your desk, giving 100 homework assignments several nights each week, or lecturing too long. What is one instructional practice you would like to use more often in your classroom? This could be something like using Remind to communicate with parents more frequently. So basically with the icebreaker, it will allow us to understand and know how to communicate and how to effectively give proper homework to our students.
Absolutely, and through that icebreaker, we'll get everybody talking a little bit. And at that point in our professional development session, we will move into a group activity where we're going to play a nice little introduction video to what RTI is. It's only about 2 minutes. For sake of the recording tonight, we're not going to play that, but this will just basically orient our teachers into just some basic information about what RTI is and why we need RTI in our school.
All right, so what response to intervention really is in the general ed setting, all teachers are given high quality instruction. And then early in the school year, the students will be tested using universal screeners. We use Scantron Performance Series for a lot of that at our school. It'll combine the core instruction, assessments, interventions are going to be, special ways of teaching certain population groups of students. And really the RTI the system is a pyramidal type scheme. You got a large base, and then you got a smaller group of students that are referred to as your tier 2 students. And then those who are in need of like an extreme or a higher level of intervention would be considered tier 3. They're the smallest triangle at the top of the pyramid. So that's really what response to intervention is in a nutshell. On the next slide, Emmanuel will sort of break it down to you in just slightly simpler terms.
Okay, so as you can see, part of it is how do we move from a focus of processes and paperwork to a focus on solutions? Basically just moving with our thoughts and ideas to actually implementing them so they can actually start working for the students. Next, you will see we must work towards real solutions to the problems students present. So basically, the solutions and the resolution have to match what's going on with the students. That's basically what our response intervention will bring forth.
Absolutely, and as it was mentioned before, RTI is a tiered model where you have a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3. As you can see in the graphic on the screen, it kind of breaks down exactly what your school and your school population, really and truly, where you should have your students and in what level. 80% of your students should fall into tier 1, 15% in tier 2, and 5% into tier 3. And those different tier levels warrant different interventions. And so The school staff, they basically will use progress monitoring data to determine the effectiveness of the interventions and make that decisions on what is effective intervention. Continuous progress monitoring of student performance is essential as part of the RTI model. So progress monitoring, and we do that a good bit in Etowah County using STAR. And that is one of the ways that we will progress monitor our students to see if they're growing with the interventions that we're providing. School staff implement specific research-based interventions to address the students' difficulties. And that's really important, especially in our Tier 3 interventions, is that we're actually using interventions that are research-based, not just kind of, hey, I'm just going to do this or try this. Like, we really want to implement things that have research for success, especially for those Tier 3, which are our students that need the most intervention. And school staff conducts universal screenings and students identified whether they're at risk, and then we use that data when they are screened. All the students are screened, and that is basically how they then are placed and fall into their different tiers. And we are able to really identify those Tier 2 and that Tier 3, those at-risk students. And all students receive high quality research-based instruction by our teachers that are, our qualified staff. So that just kind of introduces or explains exactly what our tiered model of RTI is.
And just sort of piggybacking off Ms. Tucker, this is a little closer look at what each level of instruction would look like. At the bottom, again, that makes up, that's the majority of your student population there. You've got effective differentiated instruction in every classroom where you should. And that's going to be in every content course. You got the ability there to go whole group, small group. You're working up the scale, Tier 2. You're going to sort of be a little more specialized in what you're doing. One of the things, a more notable thing that people can do in Tier 2 instructions, these students will still be in the general ed setting, but the small groups will be intentionally chosen. So you'll put some lower achievers with some higher achievers. That's what we mean by intentional grouping. And then if you've got students who fall into the Tier 3 category, that is going to be pull-out instruction. Each high school utilizes a period throughout the day called, usually it's named after their mascot, like Panther period, Lion period, Eagle period, or whatever. We do it at Sardis High School during line period, where our Tier 3 students leave line period every day. That's sort of set aside for this reason. And those students will get their intensive intervention during that session, which is offered 4 days a week. So that's a little closer look at how we handle the instruction for each tier.
Okay, tiered instruction and intervention, basically piggyback off what we often been saying. Tier 1, grade level standards-based instruction. Students learn how to learn. Strategic teaching or content literacy instruction provided in all classes. Some time for students to work with peers daily in all classes. We encourage student engagement, and students become active participants in the learning process. So basically it's bringing into students with the students so that we create an equal and efficient class period to allow everybody to become engaged and successful.
Yes, and our Tier 2 instruction, basically you're looking at different strategic teaching to support grade level standards instruction. Teachers are explicitly models strategies with students and scaffolds as needed. Opportunities for peer tutors working together to try to, if a student is not understanding a concept from what the teacher is providing, and sometimes it's effective for them to work with a peer so that maybe it clicks with them or they understand it. And those are sometimes some interventions that they do in a Tier 2 setting. And also looking at kind of grouping sometimes within a Tier 2. So grouping some students that If you are evaluating your assessments and you see that there are students that are struggling with one concept, and then you've got a different set of students struggling with another concept, grouping according to ability in order to be able to do specific interventions within those different groups to help. And you often see that in a tier 2 intervention.
All right, so in the third tier, it's going to be specifically designed for those students who fall under that umbrella that they're below the 25th percentile in achievement as measured by various different progress monitoring tools. Any student who has a failing classroom grade will be considered, or obviously considered at risk, and can be a candidate for that as well. And this year sort of brings about a lot of buoyancy within the system because of the pandemic that's in place. We've got students who are traditional to virtual, virtual to traditional, they're in quarantine. So it's tough for the students. It's putting an extra burden on them to actually stay on top of their classroom grades this year in particular. And then any student who's benchmarking below the 39th percentile, but not making progress, not closing their achievement gaps with tier 1 and tier 2 instruction, they too will be candidates to be pulled out during the line period, the Eagle period, that special class period for the tier 3 interventions. So that's how our school district currently handles the tier 3 instruction.
Okay, and then we move on to the group activity 2. Basically, it's a breakout groups. We'll look at sample RTI score reports and determine which students fall into the tier 1, 2, and 3. After that, the groups will determine different types of interventions that classroom teachers could use for tier 2 and tier 3 students. Groups will share their data and intervention plans once everybody comes back together.
So in conclusion, to wrap our professional development session up, RTI is truly a bridge to bridge the gap between those students that, for our students that are struggling. And there's a lot of things that we don't have any control over, especially in this particular school year. And we have to look at the things that we do that we can change and that we can do for these kids. Things like our instructions, our interventions, and everything that's going on in our classrooms. We do have that control, and that's what can make the difference for some of our students that are struggling.
So yes, that was, as Ms. Tucker said, that's pretty well it for the training on how we handle RTI. As with anything, to be effective, we want the feedback from you guys. So if you don't mind, please, all of you, there's copies of this, or there will be copies of this lying on the tables. Just an appraisal rating or performance rating, if you don't mind submitting that survey.
Any questions, comments? Basically, we just make sure that everyone adjusts, ask their questions, leave their comments that needed. Do any of y'all have anything to say, presenters?
I think that's all.
That's it.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.